Hello and welcome. I'm Katie Yates, Public Relations Specialist at the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. Today we will be talking about the actual turkey hunt. So this is part of a series that we've been doing. We covered scouting, gear, and calls, and today we're talking about the hunt, shot placement, and what happens after the shot with spring turkey hunting. I'm joined today by three MDIFW staff members and avid turkey hunters. Retired Rec Safety Coordinator Reggie Reed, current Rec Safety Coordinator Jasmine Pomerleau, and Wildlife Special Projects Coordinator Bob Cortez, who is, I think, running a little late today or experiencing some technical difficulties, but I'm sure he'll be joining us as soon as he can. And so for those of you watching at home, be sure to type your questions into the chat box. We will field audience questions at the end of our discussion or throughout the conversation as time allows. And just a reminder, this conversation is recorded and will be available to watch at any point in time. So Jasmine, I'm just going to actually get started with you today. What are some safety considerations that are really important for everyone to keep in mind during the hunt?
Unmuted now. So I guess I'd want to start with just kind of refreshing yourself with some of the basic things that we go over in all of our hunter safety programs or archery safety programs. You know, always keeping your firearms muzzle pointed in a safe direction. You don't want to be flagging fellow hunters or, you know, anyone or anything else in the area other than your targeted animal. So that's very, very important to us. If you are using a firearm, always treat it as if it is loaded and unsafe until it's time to take the shot. Let's see what else. There are certain times when you're not required to wear blaze orange, but I think that's a pretty important aspect no matter what season you might be hunting in. It's a good safety for yourself and just to let other people know that you're in the area. A lot of people hunt on public access land, so you might not be the only person around. So that's very, very important. And maybe some considerations about when you're traveling with your firearm or your archery equipment. You don't want to be running or jumping or climbing. If you need to do those things, maybe the use of a sling or, you know, before you have your archery equipment set up. I like to take my entire bag out for my bow and get set up once I get in my area, which I hunt from a blind. And also just, you know, think about, we talked in our previous panels about, you know, the kind of clothing that you wear, make sure that you're not making yourself appear like you potentially could be a turkey. So that's always definitely important things to keep in mind. Reggie, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Thanks, Jasmine. Yeah, you know, the blaze orange, especially when you're traveling to and from your turkey hunting area or you're picking up to move is very important. And to have some blaze orange, Bob Cortez showed us in a previous segment, the safety triangles. All very good points, Jasmine. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And as I said earlier, we are hopeful that Bob will be joining us shortly. Oh, it looks like Bob just hopped on, and I'm going to give him a minute to connect, which is perfect because I do have a question for him right off the bat. Bob, you know, Jasmine just sort of introduced some of the safety considerations to keep in mind during the hunt. And in our previous panel discussion series, we went over the scouting and the gear and the calling, and those are available for everyone to watch. So if you want to go onto our YouTube channel and peruse those, you can. And so Bob, do you mind just quickly recapping what we went over in those discussions?
Sorry.
We can hear you.
Can you repeat the question? Because I couldn't hear you, Katie. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. So it's just, can you recap what we went over in our previous panel? discussions?
Sure. We talked about all kinds of equipment, and from camouflage clothing to warm clothing to being prepared for ticks. So certainly during our spring season, ticks are an important issue. There's certainly tick clothing out there. Permethrin is a good tool to spray on your clothes, and it's something that you would want to use on prior to going out. So you'd want to spray, let your clothes dry. We talked about using blinds, using natural blinds, man-made blinds, different kinds of calls, what you would take in the woods with you, extra kind of stuff. And then talked about guns and archery equipment and a little bit about shot placement. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that today.
Yes, thank you very much. So Reggie, let's just talk about those moments right before the shot. What are some things to keep in mind as the bird comes into your field of vision?
Okay, number one, stay calm. Two, make sure that any movements you do make, you make very slowly. And as the bird gets closer, as in a previous discussion, a rangefinder is great. Hopefully you've ranged the various areas that the bird would be within an ethical shot. So saying that, then you want to have the picture in your mind of what the shot is going to be. And I know Bob will discuss in a little bit on the shot placement itself. And I think we'll ask for that right now, Katie, is if Jasmine has those, and she could share a screen. We can take a peek at the turkeys as far as shot placement goes. Okay, so the lower left, where you see the butt of the wing, these are for archery shots. That would be a shot that I would take with a shotgun, with the neck raised, and I would go to the base of the neck, or the center one with the bird facing straight on. I want the bird's head to be raised. Naturally, there's no shot in the others, in my opinion, with the neck retracted. Trying to think. And don't rush your shot. It's going to be very exciting. It's going to be, you're going to swear that the turkey can hear your heartbeat and hear you breathing. And that's some of the excitement. So you really need to keep your composure. Don't rush it. Be sure of your target. The target has to be identified. Is it too near the decoys? Is there another bird right in the immediate area that you would possibly hit? And overall, just be aware of your surroundings. Is the bird moving into an area where it would be unsafe to shoot? I think these are some of the important factors.
Thank you so much, Reggie. And you did talk quite a bit about shot placement, and that was excellent. Bob, do you have anything to add there?
Yep. I don't bow hunt for turkeys much. I've been toying the idea with crossbows, and certainly placement is a little bit different for archery equipment than shotgun, as Reggie kind of pointed out. For me, I like with my shotgun is aiming right at the base of the neck, and so where the neck meets the chest of the bird, and like Reggie said, oftentimes when they're strutting, their neck is retracted in, and you don't have that, and it's a little bit smaller of a target if that's where you're aiming for. But for me, I like that bird's neck stretched right out, and mid gobble is the funnest. But that's not a whole lot to add to what Reggie described.
Where could someone practice this if they need, Bob, if they need some help getting ready for that, or patterning their shotgun? What are some resources available for people?
Well, that's a really good question. And if you go on to our website under our adult programs, we have some signups for some activities at our Summer Haven range. And that state run range, and we have slots, and we have some turkey targets for people to try out and be able to get experience at patterning, figure out which load is the best for you. But a lot of your local fishing game clubs have that same opportunity. I know I just had worked with Wilton Fishing Game Club last weekend, and they're planning on hosting one. I think a lot of the other ones are hosting it too. Just reach out to your local fishing game club, a lot of the other ranges. And if you could, it's patterning a shotgun is something that you could do on your own if you have landowner permission, gravel pit somewhere. Just set up your target and shoot it at known ranges. Make sure you have clear backstops and permission.
Great, thank you. So Jasmine, I know that you hunt with a bow. Could you maybe talk about the difference between hunting with a shotgun versus with archery equipment?
Sure. So me personally, I like archery hunting because I find it a little bit more challenging than with a firearm. But there's a lot more, I feel there's more pros to shotgun hunting than there are to archery. So when you're using a firearm, you probably have a little bit longer of a range than you do with archery equipment. And if you miss the shot, if you're using a shotgun, you have the ability to make a consecutive shot afterwards, which is a lot more difficult when you're using a bow and arrow or a crossbow. Getting that next arrow, in and ready to take another shot, chances of you pulling that off are slim to none. That takes a lot of time and a lot of practice to be able to do one shot right after another when you're using, I use a compound bow. When you're using a shotgun, you are most likely making less movement than you would with your archery equipment. So you're raising up and trying to stay as still as possible with your shotgun. And when you are using a bow, you've got to get set for your shot and sit still until that opportunity presents itself. So less movement and less use of, muscle control required. Excuse me. Stop it. Also, when you're using a shotgun, depending on, whatever the weather situations are, you probably have a better chance at penetration with a shotgun shell than archery. And archery takes a lot more practice and discipline because there's so many different other elements that you have to take into consideration before you make that shot. So you're going for different target areas. Enough. I apologize.
We all work from home and understand that there are dogs. My dogs will oftentimes bark during something. Reggie, do you have something to add?
Yes, Kate. Jasmine just referenced her bows and crossbows. I think it would be very appropriate for her to share the screen now so that she can show the difference between shotgun and bow as far as shots that you can take with a bow.
Yeah, I'm just gonna try to pull that other one up here. Just a second, please.
Great, thank you for that. We did have a question that came in, and it's really about ammo and about ammo being unavailable. Bob, can you quickly take that while Jasmine's pulling up that image?
Sure. And certainly we are in unprecedented times with ammunition. Luckily, some of the stuff that's a little more available is shotgun ammunition. Unfortunately, being April and people being prepared are looking for shotgun specific or turkey specific ammo, and that sometimes can be hard to come by. I think more importantly is you are allowed legally to use a wide range of shotgun ammunition. And while it may have a turkey on the box, and some definitely are geared specific to it, you certainly can get by with some stuff designated for geese and ducks. And as long as it's in that legal shot range, I think the most important thing is that you spend some time with the gun and see how it patterns. And the main difference between high brass number 5 load for some designed for something else, it doesn't maybe have the ability, the length, so you're not going to be able to reach out as far, and so that may draw some of your distances in, and it'd be again very important for you to go practice with that different ammunition with whatever you can find these days.
Great, thank you, Bob. Jasmine, are you ready to share your screen?
I am, yes.
Perfect, that's okay.
Yes, man is gone, so the dog's all right. Here we go. I think I have too many pages open and it's not going to let me, so I'm going to close some of these. Okay, here we go.
We're not seeing anything, Jasmine. It looks like you just turned your camera off. That's okay. I think what we'll do is we're gonna move on and maybe revisit this at the end of the conversation. And the next question that we have is it? Let me see if is it. Oh, perfect.
All right. I think I like this one. It's actually from the huntered.com. I love using the organ visuals, so you kind of get an idea of what it looks like beneath the feathers and everything there. So like Bob and Reggie said, is ultimately you're looking for that raised neck. So you're getting the part of their spine out of the way, all of those bones out of the way, so that you're able to either get a lung or a heart shot. And I like that they also have a good indication here of beards and what you should be looking for, especially if you have restrictions on what kind of sex you need to be targeting. And obviously you can get flat paper targets that'll give you a visualization of this. You can get a 3D target, which I wanted to add to Bob's conversation about practicing this. There's so many different targets that are available. And even if you don't want to buy your own, there's tons of archery retailers that have 3D archery ranges, whether they be outside or inside. And that's kind of a fun way to practice because they'll set their targets up in, facing away from you or broadside. So you get the ability to have a really good look at when you make the shot, where is it that it's actually going to be hitting? And I think that's really important because you're not going to see the turkeys, standing broadside perfectly for you or front ahead of you. And that'll also give you a good gauge as to whether or not you're confident enough to take a shot that's going to be a quick, clean, effective kill. Anyone else have something to add to that?
So the next question that I have, thank you very much for that, Jasmine, is Reggie, let's see here, what happens if, and I actually do want to do a quick pitch. I did post the link for it. We do have a virtual bow crossbow preseason workshop that you can check your equipment. So I encourage everyone to sign up for that. I posted a link for that in our comments. Reggie, what happens if you miss or wound a bird? What should a hunter do in that circumstance?
Well, let's start with missing the bird first. You missed the bird, immediately start calling. That will give you, in many cases, an opportunity to possibly stop the bird and get the second shot. The critical point here is not make sure the bird's in range. Wounding a bird, and there's a number of different reasons. Might not have had as many pellets in the bird as you wanted. If the bird is running now and has a wing problem, it's a concern that you can get to the bird safely and dispatch. The continue to call, even if the bird's wounded. A lot of times it will stop. I don't like to think of wounding birds, but sometimes it happens, and sometimes it happens unintentionally. You may shoot at one bird and wound another bird, especially if there's two legal birds, and you shoot one and it might hit the other, providing you still have a tag. That is a good segue to point out to whoever's hunting with you to assist you. A lot of times I like to have two hunters, and just for that reason, so that a person can call and let you concentrate on taking care of the bird. Listen to where the bird went. A lot of times you'll see them run into the bushes or into the tree area. That's a point that is necessary. Follow through. A lot of times people will, I say, hurry the shot. You've taken the shot, but you don't have the follow through. Leave the gun. Make sure you have the sight picture on the turkey and that you keep that sight picture right through the shot. It's extremely easy to miss a bird. I know that for a fact. First bird I ever shot at, I didn't miss him once, I missed him twice. And a very good friend whispered to me, "Do you want me to kill him?" And so I learned a very valuable lesson. I was excited. He just nonchalantly shot the bird. It happened to be one of the tag birds that the state had released. It was the first time hunting in the North Zone back in 1996. And I remember it because that could have been my first bird. So, know your limits. Don't take a 60-yard shot. If it's a 25-yard range that you feel very comfortable with, make sure that bird's within that 25-yard range. If it's 40 yards max, then don't stretch it. I like to have little markers. I don't care whether it's just a stick, so that I know how far that bird is going to come in. And practice. Bob has said it, Jasmine has said it with bow equipment. Practice, practice, practice. It pays dividends in the end.
Thank you so much, Reggie. That's some excellent points. Bob, turning to you. All right, so let's say that you don't miss, you've made your shot, you're certain that you've made contact. What happens next? What is your immediate next steps?
So I think it depends. And so if you have full plans on taking the bird to a taxidermist, then it's important to stop them flopping around. They can do a lot of wing damage then, and it's hard for the taxidermist to fix that. But if you don't have intention, revel in that the harvest, because it's a pretty awesome experience. You just did a lot of work, maybe all season long, to get that bird to where you could make that clean kill, and then need to take some valuable steps at that point. Want to tag it to make sure it's properly tagged for transportation, and the department certainly has some tags. You can go online and download some that you can print out and put out there and have it ready to transfer it to the tagging station. Probably important in some of your equipment to have orange flagging, or if your vest has a piece of orange, when you go to throw that bird over your shoulder, they can be pretty heavy too. So keep that in consideration, but mark it with orange, or put an orange hat on or something. You just don't want to take the chance of walking through the bushes on your way back out and have a nice big turkey fan showing and the red and white and blue head. And so just kind of a safety precaution. And then the other thing to think about, in May, we can have some cool mornings and wear nice warm gear, but it also can warm up pretty good in the afternoon, and they're a nice dark bird. And we think about some things as food, and we don't always think about turkeys as food, and that meat can spoil pretty quick. And so proper care of the meat is pretty important. And if you're, like Reggie just said, a long way up north and you're hunting up north, a long way from the house, get to that tagging station and just have a cooler. You can put the bird on ice, you can field dress it, and then put the bird on ice before you deal with the next steps. But meat, what you think about the taste of wild turkey will change on how you handle that meat. If you handle it appropriately, it's leaner than what you're used to with a store-bought turkey, but it's outstanding.
Reggie, anything to add to the tagging process? Any notes there?
Yeah, you need to be familiar with your laws. So you have to put the temporary tag on, and you have the 18-hour window in which to tag the bird. You may be hunting before work, and you've harvested the bird. You put your temporary tag on it. You have it in your cooler. The tagging station may not be open. We'll start hunting around 5 o'clock, roughly in that vicinity, early season. So you have to be prepared for success. Have your temporary registration tag filled out, have it readily available to put on the bird, and follow the law as far as the 18-hour requirement. And if you're going to be beyond that, make that telephone call. Make the telephone call to the game warden so that he or she can have that information.
Thank you so much. That's great. Now, Jasmine, turning to you, let's say you've harvested your bird. What are some great ways to prepare it?
Well, I'm a big fan of low and slow. So a lot of people don't realize that wild turkey are more dark meat than white meat. And I would actually have a little visual I wanted to share here. I guess I'm getting good with the visuals. But this just kind of gives you an idea of how much white meat there is on a wild turkey versus dark meat. So you see we have our breasts here. You've got some organs here, giblets, whatever you might call them, some drumsticks, some thigh meat, some wing meat. And like I said in a previous conversation that we had, another panel, I am a fan of trash can turkey cooking, which is a slow method. The very important thing, no matter how you choose to cook your bird, is to make sure it comes to an internal temperature of 160. That way you know that it's fully cooked. I know one of our other coordinators feels that people use a lot of higher temperature than needed, which I agree. It's going to take a lot of the tenderness and juiciness out of your bird. And none of us as inland fisheries and wildlife staff are affiliated with it, but I'm a huge fan of like the Meat Eater series, where they talk about how you can cook all different kinds of wild game, and they have wonderful recipes. I know that we have some other information and links that we can share too. But a lot of people enjoy grilling or crock potting, and it's really about personal taste. If you're an herb person, you know, you're probably going to want to slather that bird up with a lot of herbs, maybe some oil or butter. A lot of people love smoking it, which is really great. There's a lot of nice electric smokers there out on the market, and you can also do something just as simple as a controlled fire, where you're purposely making smoke. Trying to think what else. It's definitely not going to taste anything like the turkeys that you buy from the grocery store for Thanksgiving, or chicken that you slow roast. But like Bob said, once you've tasted the difference, you might not actually want to eat those birds from the store anymore. That's me personally. I love wild game meat. It does taste different. If you have an open mind about it and you get creative with recipes and flavors that you like, I think you could turn just about any wild game into something delicious.
And it's important to use all of the bird if you can. Bob or Reggie, I don't know if you guys want to share any of the ways that you can, we talked about it a little bit last week, but some of the artifacts from the bird for either some kind of taxidermy for display or even for use, such as a call. Bob?
Sure. There's a lot of good stuff in it. A lot of people saved the beards and the fans and the spurs, and so I see if I can get my camera to work. So one thing that's a pretty cool thing, displaying beard. This is a shotgun shell that I use to take this bird. It's a small little bird. It's nothing. Beard's nothing to write home about, but it's just a cool way to display it and use it. My kids love feathers, so just take the feathers, and it's important to clean off the shaft quite a bit. There'll be a little bit of meat and material in there. The bugs will get it if you don't clean off the shaft, but it's pretty easy. You can just take a razor knife, let it dry, little borax, which is a great natural insect. It's not natural, it's a cleaning product, but it's an insecticide that's not harmful like arsenic. They used to treat taxidermy mounts with arsenic, and that's not the case anymore. But a little bit of borax on there and a little razor knife can clean it off. Also, spurs clean up pretty nice. It's important to get all that material off and, display them. Some people use a little leather hook. There's all kinds of cool stuff on the market. A lot of personal stuff. I don't have it with me today because I didn't want to take a chance of breaking it, but maybe Reggie has one. But you can make wing bone calls. You can make wings, turn wings into, using them as a tool to mimic fly down calls. There's the limit, or the uses are limitless.
Great, thank you. And maybe going along with that, with the preserving of the artifacts and treating the whole animal with respect, Bob, what is something for people to keep in mind when sharing the story of their hunt with others?
I think it depends on your audience, right? Some people get turned off on the talk of the kill and that kind of stuff, but I think any way you can share your experience and the excitement with somebody is a great positive way. I think, I know for a lot of Mainers, turkey hunting is a fairly new thing, right? We didn't start hunting turkeys until the mid 80s. So, and they're sometimes perceived as nuisance. And why would you ever want to kill one of those things when you can go and buy a butterball? And I would say that for a new hunter, a beginning hunter, or a seasoned hunter, the first time that you get a turkey in so close that you can feel the gobble off of your chest, that will change your opinion automatically. I often tell people that if I had only one activity, outdoor activity that I could do the rest of my life, it would be spring turkey hunting.
Yeah, such a wonderful way to celebrate the end of winter. Jasmine, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the tail end of the collecting artifacts that Bob was discussing. Just to cover yourself legally, when you're tagging your animal, you want to make sure that you're bringing the entire bird, everything except the viscera. So internal organs, they're not necessary to present to the tagging station, but you do need the entire bird. And if it has a radio collar, that needs to be submitted to the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife so that they can collect their data. I just thought I would mention that because I would hate to see somebody who watched this and us not cover that, miss that step.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. And I did post in the comments, I'm very excited about our cooking videos, and we do have some recipes available, including recipes for wild turkeys. And I posted the link for that. And anybody who's watching, if you have your favorite way of preparing wild turkey, go ahead and share your recipes in the comments. The comments are preserved. And so when someone's rewatching this recording, they'll see what you guys are asking and adding to the conversation. So Reggie, turning to you, we chatted a lot in our previous conversations about asking landowner permission and being a good land user and how to access private land responsibly. So how can a hunter thank a landowner after a successful or maybe even an unsuccessful turkey hunt?
Okay, a nice thank you. Write a short note. They really appreciate being thanked. I know I've always offered if I could do anything for the landowner. In one case, and this is the only landowner that had ever asked, I asked if I could help him in any way. He said, yes, I could come over and help him mend fences. And I never realized there was so much to mending fences and how particular this individual was on the fence mending. It really gave me a perspective from the landowner, and in this case, the farmer. And he truly appreciated it. I don't know if he really thought I was going to come over and help him, but after an 8-hour day, I took the landowner turkey hunting. He's an avid turkey hunter now. He loves to go, and I have permission to hunt on his property and take people on his property. So that's just a little tidbit there, but and sometimes sharing pictures, sharing, and I don't mean on the social media. I mean with the landowner, and many times they enjoy seeing what animals or birds are on their property, and it's an opportunity to show them. Share some of the wild game. On a turkey, sometimes there isn't a lot of meat. I know the wife and I have get to the point where we really like grinding the turkey up into a turkey burger. And there's many different recipes. The first turkey, the wild turkey that the wife cooked, it looked like one of those rubber chickens. You could stretch in any direction. I can't say as I truly enjoyed. I enjoyed the taste, but it was a very, very chewy bird. And so, as Jasmine said, cook it slow and watch it. And to share some of that with the landowners is, in my opinion, extremely important. Some say that they don't care, but there may be something else that they liked. And I always like this one story about a gentleman wanted to hunt on his farmer's land. He had stopped a number of years and hadn't received permission. He stopped this year, and the landowner says, we'll try it. The hunter hunted on his property, was successful, asked if he could share some game with the landowner, and he says, I'm not really interested. So the hunter says, well, do you like lobsters? And the farmer said yes. And so he took him over, him and his wife, a feed for that farmer. The point is that the next year, the farmer actually called the hunter and asked if he was going to be hunting on the property. It's a good way to build relationships, and it's a good way to thank the landowner at the end of the season.
Maybe the landowner just wanted lobster, Reggie.
That very well could be, but it was
No.
a perfect spot for the hunter to go back and to use the property.
No, I'm kidding, of course, but you know, I similar circumstance when I was going to graduate school in Maryland. I reached out to this farmer about hunting rabbits, cottontail rabbits, which we can't hunt in Maine. And there were an older couple that farmed the property for years, and they loved rabbits but couldn't get out and get them themselves anymore. So after every successful hunt, I would take one of the rabbits dressed to them, you know, all prepared, and drop it off at the house. And for about the next 3 years, I had exclusive hunting rights to that property, and it just takes a little bit of a gesture. And so, good points.
Great, thank you. And so, Jasmine, turning to you, we often measure the success of our hunts by whether or not we were able to harvest something. Can you speak to a little bit, if someone isn't successful this spring, or they're still kind of frustrated because they're implementing all of these tactics and they're still not getting a bird, what are some advice that you have for them? They can still consider that a successful hunt?
Well, absolutely. I feel like anytime that I get to be outdoors and in nature, whether I'm hunting or not, it's a positive experience. When I first started hunting, I was probably like 70% failure rate, 30% success. But every time that I went out, I would learn something. Even if I hadn't got the animal that I was targeting, I would learn mistakes not to make for the future. I would learn things from mentors. And I don't often hunt alone anymore. When I first started out, I did, and I realized that I kind of needed to get some information from the pros. So to me, it's, you know, it's an opportunity to be out in nature. It's an opportunity to have camaraderie with people that maybe aren't in the same demographic as me. But just like learning academically, you know, when we were growing up in elementary school, you didn't really learn, you know, your ABCs and how to write and how to do math until you made mistakes. So I would definitely say try to be patient. If you're a new hunter, keep an open mind, and that you might not be coming back with a turkey at the end of the day, but you will have a great day out in the woods or the fields or wherever it is you might be hunting. And you, whether or not it's a positive experience, it's still experiences that you're getting that, you know, you can be mindful of and look back on, so that you can carry that with you into the next season. All of us as safety coordinators and, you know, avid outdoorsmen, it's really about the experience, and it's a lifelong process. I've hunted on and off since I was a little girl with my grandfather, and I feel like I learn new things every day. We teach safety courses quite often, and just about every course that I take, I hear something that I've never heard before. So the learning never ends, and just don't give up because you're not successful the first time. There's going to be a lot of unsuccessful times, which is why we drive the point home that, you know, practice makes perfect. And the more you practice, the more successful you're going to be. And if you're not, still been a great day out in nature.
Thank you so much. So I will remind those watching at home that there is still time for you to ask your questions. And while I'm waiting for some of those to come in, I do have some more questions of my own. Reggie, when it comes to carrying the bird out, do you have any suggestions or recommendations for people for doing that safely?
Okay, so Bob has referenced, you know, putting the bird over the shoulder. I like to carry a clear plastic bag and put the bird in the bag, not so that no air can get to it, but to keep any of the fluids from leaking out of the bird onto clothing. I have found this to be very helpful. Also, they do have the blaze orange netting in which you can put the bird in, thus giving you a little more visibility when you're carrying the bird out, because usually it's high fives and it's been a good hunt. Other people that are in the area will be able to see you. So just a couple things that I've.
Thank you very much, Reggie. So Bob, I have a couple of questions about, I guess if you're a private landowner and you're looking to just make your land more attractive to turkeys or even other wildlife for a variety of reasons, do we have resources for those people or any suggestions or thoughts?
Sure. Certainly have resources. Our regional wildlife biologists are all well versed in habitat management for all our species. We have particularly our game species, and then we have a whole land management division, which is responsible for land management activities on our wildlife management areas. And we also have a Beginning with Habitat program that's partnering with our landowner relations and our land management group, and we have a biologist that's specifically been contracted to provide recommendations to private landowners to manage their woodlots for wildlife. And so I think reaching out and having a conversation with any of those folks is a good first step. There's some federal programs that you can be eligible for funding to help in some of those management practices, and those people would be well versed in those as well. And you know, just because I used to wear a different hat and I was a regional biologist, I can tell you that, you know, it's important to come in with a clear goal of whether you want to manage for a variety of species or you just care about spring turkeys, and that does affect how you might manage your property.
Great, thank you. And I did post the link for the Beginning with Habitat page. And if you click around, you will find some more of the resources that we do have available for private landowners who are just looking for some information or even connection to other partners who might be able to help them. So we did have a question come in through the chat, and it was, how soon after a bird is down should you approach it? Reggie or Jasmine, do you want to take that?
Okay, so as soon as the bird is down, number one, make sure your firearm is on safe, that you've secured your firearm. And then as you approach the bird, be careful, because a lot of times they will start flopping around. Bob has referenced, you know, so that there's no damage, especially if you're going to do taxidermy, to secure the bird. But I also want to caution, you don't have to wait until the bird is laying there for 15 minutes. As soon as the bird stops moving, or as you get to the bird, a lot of times you go to pick the bird up, especially if you got your gloves on. You want to be careful if the bird starts flapping its wings, and it has a tendency to go in circles. Thus, the spurs entangle with your gloves, and you can end up with a pretty serious scratch or cut. But to answer your question, you can approach the bird, might want to be there so that you can just secure the bird from flopping around or going into the bushes.
So maybe a good follow-up question to that just came in. I love to see all the questions coming in. Thank you, everybody, for who's watching. It can be difficult if you're a new hunter to ask some of these questions. So this is a perfect time to do that. And I think this is really related to that, Reggie. And we were talking about this right before we went live. Vanessa says, what's the best strategy for after you shoot the bird, but it's not dead yet? I'm a new hunter and I find this part of the hunt a little confusing and concerning, and I want to minimize suffering. I know that this is sometimes a difficult thing to talk about. Reggie, do you have any suggestions or thoughts?
Sure, be ready for a follow-up shot. it is the most ethical thing you can do. I don't care if it's with a bow or if it's with a shotgun. It's the most humane way of dispatching the bird. And I just want to go back, because now we're talking about a wounded bird. They do have licensed tracking dogs here in the state of Maine. If the bird has run off, not flown off, has run off, then the tracking dogs many times are able to find the bird. So just wanted to bring that point up. We do have a list somewhere of the people that have licensed dogs. Thank you.
I'll post the link to the tracking dogs. Bob, do you have anything to add, any more advice for Vanessa?
Yeah, and so certainly as a new hunter, that can be an unnerving experience to see the bird flopping around. I think a good rule of thumb to follow, or a good adage, is a chicken with its head cut off kind of thing. And so they could be already expired and just flopping around, and it's just natural, and I'm not going to disagree that it's unnerving. And if you get a proper secure hold on that bird, that oftentimes won't necessitate a second shot. Also, not everyone has the stomach to do it, but it's an equally humane method when the bird is on the ground, is a cervical dislocation. So you can cause separation in the vertebrae, and that's a humane method. So you can grab it by the neck and the body and just provide some quick pressure, and it will sever that vertebrae. Not everyone can do that, but
it's an emotional thing for some people when they go hunting, and especially some of the first times that they go. And I hear a lot of stories about people's first time hunting experiences, especially new adult hunters, and it can be very emotional for them. But there's a lot of thought and effort and respect that goes into those hunts. Jasmine, a question did come in. Do tagging stations clean and pack game as a new hunter? I'm not sure how to properly clean the bird.
So unfortunately, no, tagging stations are not going to help you prepare your bird. I would recommend maybe watching some YouTube series videos. I hate to admit it, but there's a lot of game that I didn't know how to process after my long-term mentor, my grandfather, passed away, and I had to teach myself. I have sat in the woods with a headlamp on, paying attention to my phone on YouTube, trying to figure out how to remove the viscera of a black bear. And that was just this past fall. I did watch videos prior to that, but I wanted to kind of watch as I went. So definitely there's so much information you can find online. We have handouts through Inland Fisheries and Wildlife over certain big game animals. But absolutely, if you're not familiar with it, I would say bring some kind of cloth in the event that your bird is bloody, so you have something that can kind of help absorb that. If you don't have that, old newspapers. If you wrap your bird up in old newspapers, it'll absorb a lot of the blood. A lot of people use potato sacks, but in general, I like to leave with a cooler full of ice packs, or a third full with ice in the event that I get something. If I don't, I'm out a couple of bucks in ice, and if I do, then I'm prepared. But it is a skill, and luckily I haven't had to struggle with turkey because I raise poultry here on our homestead. So I have butchered, domesticated turkeys, chickens, and ducks, and they're kind of built similarly. But if you have a weak stomach, you want to prepare yourself for what you're getting into before you take that animal down. But I would definitely look to any online resources. You can go to Google or whatever search engine you like, and how to field dress a turkey. And you're going to see more than one different kind of way, and that's perfect because you can decide what will work better for you. It's scary, but it's exciting at the same time. But absolutely watch tutorial videos so you know what you're getting into, and you also learn how not to damage your meat.
You know, it's all great points. I think it's very important to find a mentor or somebody to kind of help you along this process, and you can ask questions. There's tons of groups out there that will provide information and social support. So if you think about, there are Facebook groups and also clubs and organizations that are both, you know, in-person brick and mortar clubs like your traditional fishing game clubs, and then also organizations like backcountry hunters and anglers. That's another great group to maybe turn to for some advice. Bob, do you have anything to add to that?
Maybe. I've never tried it, but I wonder if some of the facilities that will do domestic turkeys and chickens will also process meat for you or process a wild turkey for you. But I would just echo what everyone else has said, that, you know, having a mentor is key. And if that's not the case, if you don't have access to that, YouTube videos are great. You can, you know, I do it a variety of ways, but sometimes I just breast out the meat depending on the size of the bird. And that's easily done with a fillet knife and without getting too dirty and into the weeds.
And just maybe our last question for today. I don't see any other questions really coming in from our audience, and this may be a good place to wrap up. Reggie, if anyone has any more questions or they're still feeling a little insecure about getting going, what are some resources that we have available for them?
Okay, Katie. Yeah, your clubs and organizations. It's a great resource. And to the previous question, try to have that mentor lined up. It may be that you just want that a bird cleaned so that you can observe how it's done. People are out there; they'll help you in whatever area you need some help. So yeah, it's the clubs and organizations. The people that will give you the hands-on is the arena I want to be in. So if I know in the previous hunt, that's what we did, was I wasn't able to be there for the hunt, but I told the hunter if he could be, if he could show up within a half hour after he had harvested the game, that I would show him how to do that. So the clubs and organizations in most cases are very willing to help set that up for the new people getting into the sport.
Great. Thank you so much. I think that's a perfect place for us to end our conversation today. This has been a really great series. It's been really fun for me to talk to some of the very knowledgeable people on our staff here about turkey hunting and techniques that new hunters and even hunters who've been hunting a long time can implement for a better, safe, and successful turkey hunt this spring. I encourage everybody to check out. I'm actually going to post the link in the comments now. We do have several upcoming staff presentations on the theme of spring. And actually tomorrow, our turkey and other game bird biologist, Kelsey Sullivan, will be doing a presentation about turkey management and biology in our state. So for those who have questions about why we have certain types of bag limits or just learning more about turkey behavior in our state, that's a great presentation to tune into. And we have several more coming on songbirds and on about turtles and all those things too as well. So thank you everyone for joining me today, and thank you to my panelists.